if anyone shows up to watch the stream, or to pull back up later on video. Going to do some brief gun loadouts and show a couple things on here before playing some Warzone. So, it's going to be going into some private matches. Okay, this is my favorite map for testing things. And off the bat, this is not meant in any kind of offense to the people involved, but there are a bunch of YouTube guides and people giving advice about recoil, loadouts, different attachment perks in this game that are really missing some critical stuff. And I think generally speaking the information is good, but there's some fundamental stuff here. At the same time, you kind of don't want to be telling people things that they need to figure out for themselves. But what I'm going to do here is just go ahead and use this kilo.
Team deathmatch. Jackals, let's hunt.
Okay, so most people at this point in playing shooter games are familiar with this general class setup. Of weapon types. Heavy, longer range, sniping rifles, mid-level, mid-tier sniping rifles called marksman rifles, your super close range shotguns, your mobile shorter range submachine guns, and your carbine assault rifle types that are in between, going up into longer range between the submachine guns and your rifles. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to show on here. Spot here. Because of the nature of one of these shooter games, when you're running around the map, or even walking like so, when someone pops up, the first person to kill is the winner in an engagement. Everybody normally knows that a quick ADS time is going to be preferential. There are plenty of games that do not use this ADS dynamic. The biggest one is Counter-Strike Go. So that's a good launching point. First thing off the bat is that there is absolutely no comparison whatsoever between using a mouse and a controller stick. Whatever effect aim assist has, and that is pretty controversial, because there seem to be a lot of artificial dynamics going into aim assist, and in this game it is consistently, basically, largely broken on and off between updates. When you have a mouse, you can literally set your settings point and click. When you have a stick, you're going to have all sorts of wobble around the center area of the stick where your motions do not directly translate into your aim. Every controller, every dead zone, every sensitivity, every construction difference is going to affect how you're able to get right into the motions around the central dead zone. And because that is where your fine-tuning of aim is going to be most important, that isn't, I mean, it's the most important thing on Earth. That is why I ended up going with PlayStation over Xbox for controllers, because no matter what quality of controller I got, any of the elites, no matter what settings I did, I could not get an Xbox controller to have the central fine-tune aiming that a PlayStation controller does. And so far, every third-party PlayStation controller I've had is much more accurate than any of the Xbox controllers. The problem so far is that whatever they are doing with the stick construction, the PlayStation ones break and the Xbox don't. And there must be something going on in there in the way that the central area works with the stick sensitivity. For example, if I take an Xbox controller and turn the dead zones completely off, I have random drift in virtually any game. I've had multiple brand new Elite controllers, and if I turn the total dead zone off, whoop, there it goes, with no motion whatsoever on a brand new controller. PlayStation does not happen. So, whatever, it's not one faulty controller when it's been at least 4 different brands of Xbox, 3 different brand new Elite controllers, something going on. Okay, so whatever, you have to deal with the fact that a mouse can point and click and a controller can't. Simple as that. Okay, so that's the simple aiming part. ADS time is commonly known. I'm going to skip over that for a second. Call of Duty has a feature called Sprint to Fire, where there is a time between running, walking, and super sprinting before you can actually get the shots off. That goes for hip fire, where you can see a delay there, or ADS time. In each game, they totally changed this dynamic. They changed the way it works with the perks. It is not consistent. World War II had a totally different way of dealing and stacking the perks, the ADS, and the hip fire, sprint to fire time. Whatever, it's all just a big headache, but here you go. This is a kilo. I'm going to walk over this yellow mark. As soon as I hit the center of the yellow mark, I'm going to pull the fire button. Now I'm going to run. Hit down. Let's see if it's consistent. A little bit off, but you can see the delay in between the two. This is a very rough test. If you sprint to fire, that's closer to where my actual mark was on that one. The regular sprint was maybe like right in here. This was right in here. That may not seem like very much, but look at the bullet count. I'm at a full magazine of 30. I'm gonna run. It's kind of hard to see on this, but I have run it more accurately, repeatedly, and you consistently get nearly 5 full bullets space before you can ever even get a shot off. Meaning that if one person was simply standing still and shooting, and you are running and have to pull up and shoot, not even counting ADS time, even just hip fire, you are losing close to 5 bullets shooting time rounding a corner. So when you see people play this game and they're going, oh, I'm just going to run around this corner, and they're dead.
Low ammo.
5 bullets is at nearly every single range in the standard Call of Duty game, in core games, enough to kill somebody. Here we go. Gonna do it again. Full 30 round magazine. Run. 4 bullets. Again, like I said, this is very rough. I can be more precise. I'm not going to go into doing that right now. Okay. Next up. When people go to shoot, 2 major extremes. Here's hip fire at this range. Full magazine, center directly. I'm going to go ahead and move it up to the line right there. Let's go see how many of those bullets actually hit the middle. 1 bullet. 1 bullet is anywhere remotely near the center of that at that range. Scoot over a little bit. Okay. Whether you're running or standing still, if you go to aim down sight, people are typically going to do one of 2 things at the extremes. They're going to either totally wait and attempt to focus here, or they're going to, and this is the one that most I'm super duper, I'm better than everybody Call of Duty people is going to do. They're going to slam on both buttons at the same time. They're going to hit their aim and their shoot at the exact same time, thinking this is somehow going to beat everything. Here you go. Aim, shoot. There's something very obvious here that I'm not even going to mention at this point, but there you go. That's aiming and shooting. Here is hitting them at the same time. So effectively, no difference whatsoever. On certain guns, when you go to do this, what you are doing when you do that, by hitting them both at the same time, it literally will hit 1 bullet, possibly, if anything, right in the middle out of 15. So this practice of going and hitting them at the same time is effectively worthless. It does absolutely next to nothing on any gun ever tested. So if you think you're being super swift and you move around, you're going, woohoo, I'm so fast and speedy, and I know to slam on both my buttons at the same time. Effectively worthless. Until you're actually focused, it does not focus, and the bullets do not hit in the middle. to my knowledge, without doing frame-by-frame hypersensitive camera testing, when you see this box here, and you know that when you shoot, it's going to splatter and bounce all around the perimeter of that box. You also know that when you have a tighter hip-fire gun, that box is going to be much smaller. As far as I know, with every single gun in the game, your ADS time does not change. That means that if you have this gun kitted so that your ADS time is set at one value and your hitbox is set right there, and you go to draw, it has a given, it's like a cone is extending from the gun here at the tip over to that box. When you kit the gun to have a smaller hitbox, which I can't do without changing my loadouts and stuff, I'm just going to try and demonstrate it shrinking here. If you were to say, cut this box down to half that, your ADS time is still going to be the same. It does not reduce the ADS time into that focal center point by reducing the size of the overall box. But that means that your spread, no matter what you do, including if you jam on both buttons, is already going to be half of what it was before. It's like having a overall recoil compensation to a certain extent. So, smaller hitboxes on the hipfire are definitively better. When you're at any range, if you go out and take a gun like this and look at the size of these hitboxes, even though the aim down sight time is not going to change, that box is going to make all the difference in the world, because when you start to shoot and slam on both buttons, you're going to be reducing the overall spread probability area to like 50 to even 33%. So, as long as you can manage it, smaller hitboxes are much, much better overall. If you're doing a lot of tactical stuff where you're essentially playing like you're a sniper, whether you're a sniper or not, you're aiming, you're trying to like do all this pre-aim stuff, no, that's not going to matter so much. But the way standard people play Call of Duty, yes, your hitbox does matter, even if you're planning to ADS all the time. Okay, next thing up that is like completely everybody's totally wrong about. There's a statistic in here. These stat bars are just absolutely horrible. Whatever they thought that they were doing, accuracy, damage, range, fire rate, mobility control, this is just proof that the Infinity Ward dev team has horrible internal communication. They don't, half of them don't know what they're doing. They're apparently given instructions by people that do know what they're doing, because they have been just gonna just point to the most recent example. Merc Foregrip says recoil control, hip fire accuracy, reduction in ADS and aim walking movement speed. It gives a mobility drop down there in the red of a little smidgen on the bar, which actually matters. It really does slow those things down. But as it turns out, it has been for over 9-10 months one of the fastest attachments. It literally speeds up your actual movement speed, which it's supposed to say there, faster than nearly anything in the game. When you see anything that says it actually improves movement speed, like this one, this barrel, you know, actually that barrel doesn't say improves. Where's one that says improves movement speed? Movement speed. Okay, where this one says no stock improves movement speed, it has the green boost there showing the one thing that improves. The Merc Grip actually has improved that for 10 months by probably half of what that bar is and does not say it anywhere in the stats. Whether they meant for that, if it was a trick, if it was a scam, whatever, we may never know, but it is completely and totally wrong. There is no other way to interpret it than being wrong. They're a fifth of everything in these guns I have tested ad nauseum for 10 months is wrong. Okay, as if that wasn't enough reason to turn the game off, whatever, the game has potential, they need to get their stuff together and correct it. Okay, so here we go. Alright. Given the stat bars are absolutely horrible, my point a second ago was this, and this is what everybody's wrong about. There is a stat in here which is aiming stability, and what everyone says that this means is it is the idle drift of the gun. So, you point right here at this range. Okay, point right there. You can see that the sight is bobbing. I mean, like, literally a half centimeter on the screen. The issue with that is that as soon as you put on a longer range sight, and this does in fact matter, as soon as you put on a longer range sight, that is going to be a much more pronounced effect. Now, in my opinion, although I cannot prove it, part of the reason that pro Call of Duty players are secretly not using sights is because the game, and again, I could be wrong, but as far as I know, the aim assist, the hit registration, the sensitivity of the hit boxes at range. For example, if you have an enemy standing here, and they are pretty far away, and they have a very, very difficult to see edge on their hitbox, to the point that your actual central cursor there is nearly as big as the edge around their body. What is the game going to do when you go to shoot right at that edge? If your actual cursor is bigger than the side of their body, what is it going to do within the cursor? And, you know, this would have to be tested, but when you go to zoom in, that is different. The edge is now not so far away. The cursor is much smaller in ratio to their body. And it is as if, in these games, it becomes much more difficult to hit. If you have no sight and aim out here, and the cursor is literally like a quarter as big as their head, but when you zoom in, it is now a tenth as big as their head. It seems, by anything that I've ever seen, that it becomes equivalently more difficult to get a hit registration. And so when they are off shooting at something way over here with no sight, it seems to be giving them easier hit registration than if they were actually zoomed in, which is just crazy. So I'm not sure that that's the case, but it really seems to be. Whatever the case, when you put this on, you see this drift. Okay, now, what many people have said is that when this drift is sitting here, that is not that big of a deal. That when you're kitting your gun with your attachments and things, that this thing is not an effect, because all you have to do is, as you're moving, you know, you see somebody come around the corner, and you draw, and you focus. There is a serious problem with that. And the serious problem is this. This gun may not have enough sway at this distance to be able to really show it, but 5 points. I need to find something more, something easier to. Let's see here. Oh, I know what I'll do. Go over here and point at these things. Okay, I am going to point with hip fire only, right at the center of that. Notice there is next to no visible sway. Now, even though I'm pointing right at the middle, look at what happens. Every time you go to draw, it is already in the background, swiveling your aim off of the center of where you're focusing. So it's not like this is a big deal. As you're running around a map on shipment and you target prior to aiming down sight, and you have everything right on point, when you actually go to draw, it is already throwing your aim off. And as you're moving, this becomes super bad. It is already throwing your aim off up to feet to the side. So it makes no difference what your original aim was, because it is already pre-calculating and throwing the ADS focus off. You literally will not, I'm not sure the exact percentage, but a vast minority of the time will you ever actually be where you're pointing. That is absolutely horrible. And all it takes to do to see that it's doing this is to kit your gun so that it's maximum aim stability, and then go and test it out at different ranges shooting at people. And you'll see that when you have it locked on, when you have it set to be no idle drift, and you go to move around and lock on, it will be exactly where you pinpoint it. It's like a laser. And when you go to do this, now, the issue with this is that, just like I was saying a second ago about the hitting the two buttons at the same time instead of waiting, since this does effectively nothing, you have to aim. And when you go to aim and it's drifting to a random area around the triangle, which way are you going to correct it? It's not like predictive recoil where you can... So, even though people have said that this is like something that only affects snipers or only does... No, that is not true. It makes all the difference in the world for actually hitting the shots. If you want to pinpoint somebody's head at a distance and you roll around and you have your cursor right here like a mouse and keyboard, and you pinpoint target it, it is literally throwing it up to the side. There is nothing you can do about it with the aim stability. Okay, next up, between both of those, speaking of the thing here, I'm gonna go over to a clean little spot over here. All right. Aiming down sight, 5 bullets. That's the recoil spread, that's the base idle sway, that's everything. Even on a low recoil gun like the Kilo, pretty bad. If you actually got to the shot, you have 2 bullets on point, 3 off to Timbuktu. And every gun's going to be different. So if you're going to shoot at people, and I don't know why people dance around this. They say, oh, the game's broken, I didn't get my hit registration, everybody's spongy, it's delay, it's lag comp. Well, sometimes it is, and it's absolutely horrible. But, you know, as far as that goes, the problem is the game is literally splicing your game states. The game is taking one person that is standing right here. On your camera, they're standing over here. In their game, they're already shooting you. In your game, they're behind a box. And when they are over here already on their screen looking at you, and say you've just been lying, you're like, you were lying here the whole time. So you were lying here. And somebody comes over here. In their game, they are right here aiming and shooting. In your game, they're right here. And they haven't done anything. And you see them. And you're right here. Oh, here they come. I'm shooting. Bang, you're dead. How did you end up dead so quickly? What the hell happened? Well, that's because they were actually already over here shooting. And what the game is literally, physically, by programming doing, is splicing the two game states. When you see them, it does a thing called frame extrapolation and frame interpolation, where they, since they are already over here, the whole thing gets sped up and spliced so that they are finally over here killing you at the time that roughly matches when they were killing you on their screen. So it takes a normal person who has never played these Call of Duty games, for example, about 5 minutes to notice that. They say this makes no sense. Their guns are killing and half the time mine are. Now the time does not, I don't think that the time does that so much. It's actually the positioning. I think that they've rigged the programming where that the time is the minimum TTK on the guns, but their positioning is totally off. So, whatever. My point being that when you're saying that you're shooting at somebody and it's not killing them or the bullets aren't registering, some of that's true. More than anything, in my opinion, it's because of the state interpolation, which is what that's called by the books. You can go and look up the programming schools out in Silicon Valley, the CSGO Valve people. Anyway, a lot of the what people think is hit registration is coming from this initial shot recoil. That was a quick burst of 5 bullets with no adjustment, no compensation, all of this intrinsic idle sway on the raw kilo, and you can see that 2 out of 5 bullets actually hit the target. So, that was ADSing. Let's take a quick look at slamming them all at the same time. For a 5 bullet count. It's actually 4. It's kind of hard to pull it off. On a 4 bullet count, I got 1 bullet, maybe 2 off target, and nothing else. When I have gone to test this with different guns, that ADS time is typically losing on an exact side-by-side with a low recoil gun with good aim. By the time you go to get it aimed down to where the actual bullets are going to hit, you are typically losing 2 or 3 bullets per 5 on pure timing. So what that means, what I'm getting at again, is that no matter what you do when you're running around the map and you go to aim down sight to actually get your bullets on point, whether you slam the 2 buttons at the same time or whether you fully aim, in order to actually get your stuff on target as you're running around, you are going to lose at least 2 to 3 bullets in time versus an enemy who is already sitting there doing this.
No ammo!
Not many of the guns actually kill at a standard range in 2 to 3 bullets, but that is easily over half of the time to kill. Given as even with aiming on recoil, you're going to lose 3 of 5, even on a low recoil gun. When you stack the ADS time, the recoil, you are easily losing half of your shots to another person who is ready to roll. You're half dead. And that's even beyond all of the other stuff with the lag compensation. Just on a perfect land connection in a tournament. When you are running around, by the time you ADS by the time you get any bullets on point, you are losing 2+ bullets per 5. Now, when you couple that with the running, where you actually have to get the gun up against the sprint to fire value, this is up to 5 bullets distance just on a run or a sprint before you can ever even get a shot off. You are essentially already dead. If you are literally running around the map, and I'm not even talking about super spray, if you're running around the map and you go to pull up, even on hip fire, if the hip fire was perfectly just hitting every shot and you're running, just on that delay right there, if you see that delay where you go to pull up, here we go. Gonna run. Gonna run. Shoot. That right there, that delay before any bullets came out, that is enough time to die. When you run and then you have to pull up, time to die. You have effectively, just in that window there, had enough time to die. And given us the fact that those bullets are not going to be hitting until it's right there, and then you're shooting, double time to die. You have to get a frame-by-frame camera and calculate these values, but the point is, this is what I'm getting at. Before even touching recoil on any of these guns whatsoever, if you are not planning to be a camper and lie here possibly on a head glitch, or hiding between a window, or poking around a wall, if you're planning to run around, your sprint to fire is enough time to nearly die. Your ADS time is enough to half die. And your any of that to actually get the bullet on, you've just lost before you ever started. Then there's the recoil. And like I was saying, even on a super low recoil, just here on a random plot, 2 of 5 bullets were actually on target. That's, again, half the time to get killed. So, one side note is when you're doing that, you can pull down, burst fire, you can tap fire. The problem with all that, I mean, yeah, that's pro, but I think that's an arguable pro, seeing as all the pros this year decided to run no stock. That is the most unrealistic, nonsensical thing probably humanly imaginable. And so finally it has been nerfed so that no stock has a more normal effect, which is that the recoil without a stock bounces completely all over the place now. You know, whatever. But if you think when you're running all over the place, you're doing all this, there are like 5 people coming from everywhere, that you're going to be able to constantly be able to pull down at the right angle and do that, more power to you. You know, whatever. You know, you can try your best. I'm not even going to get into giving advice on that because that's recoil. I mean, like, more like, you know, if you think you can pull down all the time, go for it. I don't think it's very realistic. It's probably going to be much better to use an attachment to do that. I mean, it's great when you're at long range or something, but anyway, this is the final thing that I'm going to put on here. And basically, my point, sad to say, has been everybody's just completely all over the place wrong. People are not putting their focus on like what is really mattering on this. Like I said, no offense, but whatever. keeping in mind with all of this, we had guns when the game first launched that any normal person knows when you crouch and lock a position and brace your gun and shoot, that is going to reduce your recoil. That is the entire point of having a grip, a power stance, and a lockdown on this gun. You are supposed to be crouching. All these people talking shit about crouch walking, that is called skulking. That is a verified, bona fide, tried and true, real thing that you are supposed to do in the correct circumstance to lock down your recoil and spread on your gun. When this game came out, they had guns that when you did this, it doubled the random rise or shake of the recoil, which was just completely broken. And as far as I know, that was fixed. I can't even remember. I think it was the MP7 or something had that horrible crouching recoil. I think it was more than one, though. But whatever. Here's my point. This is like the last thing I'm going to say on this thing. Okay. You have all these people all over the place doing these dumb recoil tests. Here's a magazine of 30 bullets. Let's shoot right here. That is why this Kilo is, generally speaking, a overall low recoil gun. But that really doesn't amount to that much. Because, first off, do this again where it's easier to see. Okay, of that entire magazine, it was just wasted. Two bullets. Each gun is going to be different. This is why people have so many... This is one of the reasons that people have so many problems with the high-power Odin or the Scar gun. It's because this second bullet is not even remotely happening there. It is happening up where this third and fourth bullet are. And on those super, what should be called, this gets into big argument, but these guns that should be called the high recoil guns, it is this critical shot window. And this is just a perfect place to see where the critical shot window is. On virtually any of these guns, this section right here, at the range that I was at, and, you know, I may be a little bit off here. I'm thinking that this is about, let's see. I think that right there would be about, maybe out to about there. I'm thinking that's about 90 feet. And I'm thinking that this is about 45. About 30 yards, about 15. That's roughly about maybe 20 meters. I'm guessing this is 20 meters right here. I really should do a exact test on the meters. I'm thinking this is about 20 meters. But one way or another, you can see the visual spatial range that I'm at. And this is a fairly common range for... It's a fairly common range in Call of Duty to be engaging someone. You'll see people on some of the larger maps who are like right about in there. You know, that's like twice the distance. This is a fairly common one, a little bit short range. You know, you're going to see some people back in here. A lot of people are engaging here. You know, that's a big issue with Call of Duty. Is how many of your, if you actually look at your games, how many of your engagements are right here point blank? How many are right in this range? How many are right in that range? And how many are back over in there? Or now in Warzone, you're going to get out this stuff. But whatever. There are only a few key brackets there. At this range, that little window right there that I was pointing at is a perfect example of what are called critical shots, or critical shot recoil. And all this other stuff, that really does not matter. It shouldn't matter. Because... what you're seeing here is that in the critical shots, you're basically getting 2 1 point. Anything that you can do with your gun to get more of your gunshots on point where you were actually aiming without an intrinsic bounce that you basically cannot control is what you want. This stuff, if you look at some kind of like sustained fire where you're holding down on the stick and trying to do this, yes, to a certain extent that's going to matter, but you're just talking about burning magazines. If you are actually trying to hit someone given the rate of fire and the time to kill on something, this is what matters. The Merc foregrip reduces that. The number one thing that you can do that makes all of this irrelevant is this. And as you can see, even with the tap fire, even when you pull down a little bit, I'm rapidly alternating my down tap and my shooting. Which is very difficult to do when you're in the middle of the game. You're still going to have bounce. So all this stuff about, and like I said, if you have a gun that has recoil, that when you open up the full magazine goes all the way up to here, which there are guns that do that, and you use a stack of recoil things that reduce it down to here, yes, that is going to be a dramatic help. But what is still going to matter is this little window right here. And if that gun is bouncing up, and the first bullet goes to here, and the second here, and then it starts cutting down, it's really not making that much of a difference. All those recoil spreads that people show all over the place are really not doing much of anything. So what you need to do, if you want to learn your gun, is take a look at a 5-bullet, a tap fire, a select fire, pulling down. I'm out of ammo. Pulling down on it. And then look at the overall spread. Try kitting your gun for maximum recoil reduction. Put in everything you can to get those things down. And see how it behaves with any of those with that. Yeah, you will see that, to my knowledge, every gun in this game, if you take that dramatic overall recoil and shrink it down, it does become easier to control it down in here through the tap fire and the stick. But, it's still arguable whether any of that matters. Okay, through with that, taking a break, checking on out.